My name is Rachel, I am 29 years old, and today was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Instead, I stood alone in my childhood bedroom, staring at my wedding dress hanging on the door, while downstairs my parents entertained guests who had arrived for my rehearsal dinner. The text message on my phone was still open, the words burning into my memory. "We have decided not to participate in your wedding. You have made your choice, now we are making ours." Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever felt like you had to choose between the family you were born into and the family you want to build. Trust me, this story takes turns you will not expect. Growing up, I was what most people would call the golden child. Straight A student, varsity volleyball captain, debate team president, and accepted to Stanford with a full academic scholarship. My parents, Margaret and Richard Chin, were first-generation immigrants from Taiwan who built a successful accounting firm from nothing. They worked 80-hour weeks to give my younger brother Kevin and me opportunities they never had. Education was everything in our household. Every dinner conversation revolved around grades, test scores, college applications, and career prospects. My mother kept a spreadsheet tracking my GPA from 6th grade through high school. My father attended every parent-teacher conference, armed with questions about curriculum and advancement opportunities. I understood the sacrifice they made. I saw my mother fall asleep at the kitchen table doing client tax returns at 2 a.m. I watched my father miss family gatherings because tax season never truly ended for a small business owner. Their love language was achievement. Every academic award I won, every scholarship I earned, every honor I received was met with genuine pride and validation. My childhood home in Palo Alto was a shrine to accomplishment. Framed certificates lined the hallways. Trophies filled built-in shelves. Report cards were preserved in protective sleeves. When I was accepted to Stanford, my parents threw a party and invited their entire extended family and client base. It was the proudest moment of their lives. College was where I met him. Not my fiancé, but the version of myself I had been hiding for 22 years. Away from the constant pressure and expectations, I discovered interests beyond academics. I joined an intramural soccer league just for fun, not competition. I took elective courses in creative writing and art history that had no practical career application. I stayed up late having philosophical conversations with friends about life, meaning, and purpose rather than studying for the next exam. I also met Daniel Rodriguez during my junior year. He was a year ahead of me, studying environmental science with plans to work in conservation. We met at a campus sustainability rally where he was speaking about watershed protection. His passion for the environment, his genuine kindness, and his ability to find joy in simple moments captivated me immediately. Daniel came from a completely different world than mine. His parents, Maria and Roberto, owned a small family restaurant in Sacramento. His father was a chef, his mother managed the front of house. They worked hard, but their definition of success was different from my parents'. Family dinners happened every Sunday, no exceptions. Holidays were loud, chaotic affairs with cousins and aunts and uncles crammed into a modest house, sharing food and stories and laughter. The first time Daniel invited me to Sunday dinner with his family, I was nervous. I wore a conservative dress and brought an expensive bottle of wine, treating it like a business meeting. His mother opened the door, immediately pulled me into a hug, and said, "No formality here, Mija. We are family now." The evening was unlike anything I had experienced. 3 generations gathered around a table barely large enough to hold everyone. Conversation flowed in English and Spanish, sometimes mid-sentence. Children ran through the house shrieking with laughter. His grandmother insisted on reading my palm and declared I had a strong heart. Nobody asked about my GPA or career plans. Instead, they asked if I liked the food, told embarrassing stories about Daniel's childhood, and included me in their easy affection as if I had always belonged. I called my mother from my dorm room that night, trying to explain how different yet wonderful the experience had been. Her response was measured. "That sounds nice, Rachel. But remember, you're at Stanford to build your future, not to play house with some boy's family." Daniel and I dated through my senior year. After graduation, I accepted a position at a prestigious consulting firm in San Francisco. The salary was impressive, the opportunity for advancement clear. My parents were thrilled. This was the trajectory they had envisioned: elite education leading to elite career, eventually resulting in partnership, wealth, and status. Daniel, however, took a job with a non-profit environmental organization. His salary was less than half of mine. He worked in the field often, conducting water quality tests and meeting with rural communities about conservation practices. The work was meaningful to him, but my parents could not understand why anyone with a Stanford degree would choose nonprofit work over corporate advancement. The first time I brought Daniel home for dinner was a disaster I should have anticipated. My mother had prepared her signature Taiwanese dishes, a gesture I knew was significant. My father opened an expensive bottle of wine from a case he saved for important occasions. They were trying, in their way, to welcome Daniel. The conversation started politely enough. My father asked about Daniel's degree, his job, his career plans. Daniel explained his passion for environmental conservation, describing a recent project restoring salmon habitats in Northern California. His eyes lit up as he spoke about the impact of their work, the communities they served, the measurable improvements in water quality. My mother listened politely, then asked, "And what is the advancement trajectory in this field? When can you expect to reach 6 figures?" Daniel paused, clearly taken aback by the directness. "Honestly, Mrs. Chin, that is not really the goal. The work is about impact, not income. I live comfortably enough." The temperature in the room dropped noticeably. My father cleared his throat. "Comfortably is relative, Daniel. Rachel is accustomed to a certain lifestyle. Her education prepared her for partnership track positions. Have you thought about how you would support a family on a nonprofit salary?" I jumped in, trying to smooth over the awkwardness. "Dad, we are not talking about marriage. We are just dating." But my mother was not finished. "These things become serious quickly. We have seen Rachel's Stanford classmates marry doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs. People who can provide stability and opportunity." The dinner ended early. Daniel was gracious, thanking my parents for the meal and the conversation. But in the car afterward, he was quiet. "They think I am not good enough for you," he finally said. "They just do not understand yet," I replied, taking his hand. "Give them time." But time did not improve things. Over the next 2 years, as my relationship with Daniel deepened, my parents' disapproval became more overt. They stopped asking about him. When I mentioned his name, my mother would change the subject. When I invited them to events where Daniel would be present, they always had scheduling conflicts. The real crisis came when Daniel proposed. It was simple and perfect, exactly what I wanted. We were hiking in Muir Woods, one of our favorite places. At a quiet clearing overlooking the redwoods, he got down on one knee and asked me to build a life with him. The ring was modest, a simple sapphire that had belonged to his grandmother. I said yes without hesitation. I waited until I could tell my parents in person, driving to Palo Alto the following weekend. I found them in the living room, my mother reviewing client files, my father reading the Wall Street Journal. I sat down across from them, my left hand conspicuously visible, and said, "Daniel asked me to marry him." I said yes. The silence that followed felt endless. My mother's eyes fixed on the ring, her expression unreadable. My father carefully folded his newspaper, the creases precise and deliberate. "No," my mother finally said, her voice flat. "Excuse me," I replied, certain I had misheard. "No," she repeated. "We do not approve of this marriage." I was not asking for approval, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I was sharing happy news. My father leaned forward, his business negotiation voice activating. "Rachel, be reasonable. You are 27 years old, at the beginning of a promising career. This Daniel, he is a nice enough young man, but he cannot provide the life you deserve. His family is not our kind of people. His career has no trajectory. You would be settling." Settling. The word came out sharper than I intended. I am marrying the kindest, most genuine person I have ever met. Someone who makes me laugh, who challenges me to be better, who actually sees me instead of just my accomplishments. You are confusing infatuation with compatibility, my mother said, her tone clinical. Real marriage requires financial stability, shared values, similar backgrounds. What will you have in common when the romance fades? How will you raise children with someone from such a different culture? His family is Mexican-American, Mom. Not aliens from another planet. She stiffened at my sarcasm. Do not be disrespectful. We are trying to protect you from a mistake that will limit your entire future. The conversation deteriorated from there. My father laid out practical concerns about combined income, career sacrifices, lifestyle adjustments. My mother expressed worry about grandchildren not understanding their Taiwanese heritage. Both insisted I was too young to make such a permanent decision. I left that evening without resolution, the joy of my engagement already tainted by their rejection. Over the following months, I tried everything to bridge the gap between my parents and Daniel. I arranged casual coffee meetings that my parents canceled. I invited them to dinners where they could see Daniel and me as a couple. I sent articles about successful dual-career marriages and changing definitions of financial security. Nothing worked. My mother's responses became shorter and more distant. My father stopped returning my calls as frequently. When I finally called them out on their behavior, my mother said coldly, "We are not going to pretend to support something we believe is wrong for you." Meanwhile, Daniel's family embraced our engagement completely. His mother cried happy tears and immediately began planning. His father shook Daniel's hand and told him he had chosen well. His grandmother gave me a lace mantilla that had been in their family for 4 generations to wear at the wedding if I wanted. The contrast was painful. One family celebrating with open arms, the other withdrawing in silent disapproval. Wedding planning became a minefield. When I asked my mother if she wanted to help choose my dress, she replied, "I have work commitments." When I invited my parents to the venue tour, they said they were too busy. Every milestone that should have involved family became another reminder of their absence. Maria, Daniel's mother, tried to fill the gaps. She came dress shopping with me and Daniel's sister Sophia. She helped me navigate wedding traditions and offered to host a bridal shower. Her kindness made my parents' rejection hurt even more. 6 months before the wedding, I made one final attempt. I drove to Palo Alto unannounced and found my parents in their immaculate living room, the same room where I had announced my engagement. "We need to talk," I said, sitting down without invitation. "I am getting married in 6 months. With or without your support, I am marrying Daniel. But I want you there. I need you there. Can we please find a way past this?" My mother set down her teacup with deliberate precision. "Rachel, if you insist on this marriage, that is your choice. But do not expect us to celebrate a decision we fundamentally disagree with." "What exactly do you disagree with?" I challenged. "That he is not wealthy? That his parents own a restaurant instead of an accounting firm? That he is not Taiwanese? Tell me what the real problem is." "The real problem," my father said, his voice heavy, "is that you are choosing someone who will hold you back instead of pushing you forward. We did not sacrifice everything to watch you settle for mediocrity." The words hit like a physical blow. "You think Daniel is mediocre? You think loving someone who values purpose over profit makes me a failure? We think you are making an emotional decision that will have practical consequences you have not fully considered," my mother said. "And we cannot in good conscience participate in this wedding when we believe it is a mistake." I stood, my hands shaking. "Then I guess you have made your choice. Just like I have made mine." I left without looking back. The weeks before the wedding were a blur of final preparations, made bittersweet by my parents' continued absence. They did not RSVP to any wedding-related events. They did not respond to the email with ceremony details. When I called to ask point-blank if they were coming, my mother said simply, "We will let you know." That non-answer told me everything. Daniel's family tried to compensate. His uncle offered to walk me down the aisle if my father refused. His aunt helped finalize centerpieces and place cards. Maria spent hours on the phone with me, talking through my hurt and fear that my own parents would miss my wedding day. "Their loss," she told me gently. "You are a beautiful, accomplished, wonderful woman. Daniel is lucky to have you, and we are lucky to gain you as family. Whether your parents see that or not does not change your worth. 2 days before the wedding, we gathered for the rehearsal dinner at the Rodriguez family restaurant. They had closed it to the public and transformed the space with white lights, flowers, and a long family-style table. Daniel's extended family arrived in waves, each greeting me with genuine warmth. I stood at the entrance, watching this family that had welcomed me so completely, and felt the absence of my own parents like a missing limb. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "We have decided not to participate in your wedding. You have made your choice, now we are making ours." I excused myself and went upstairs to my childhood bedroom, which I had been using while coordinating final wedding details. The room was exactly as I had left it for college: debate trophies, academic awards, photos of quiz bowl victories. A shrine to the daughter they wanted me to remain. Sitting on my narrow childhood bed, I let myself cry. Not just for their absence, but for the relationship we would never have. For parents who measured love in achievements rather than acceptance. For the reality that I would walk down the aisle alone. A knock on the door interrupted my breakdown. "Rachel?" It was my brother Kevin's voice. "Can I come in?" I wiped my eyes and opened the door. Kevin, now 25 and working as a software engineer, looked uncomfortable but determined. "I know about the text," he said. "Mom and Dad told me they were not going. I wanted to check on you." "I am fine," I lied. He sat on the desk chair, the same one where I had done countless homework assignments. "No, you're not. And you should not have to be. Kevin, you do not have to get involved in this." "Yeah, I do. Because Mom and Dad are wrong." He ran his hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I recognized. "I have been watching this whole thing play out, and they are wrong. Daniel is a good guy. He makes you happy. They should be celebrating that, not punishing you for it." "They think I am settling," I said, my voice breaking. "They think anything short of marrying a Stanford MBA is settling. Do you know what they said when I told them I was dating someone who did not go to an Ivy League school? They said I was limiting my network." We sat in silence for a moment, two children realizing their parents' love had always been conditional. "I am coming to your wedding," Kevin said firmly. "And I am standing with you if you need someone to walk you down the aisle. Because family should not mean choosing between their approval and your happiness." I woke on my wedding day in a hotel room surrounded by Daniel's sister, cousins, and mother. They had insisted on staying with me the night before, correctly sensing I should not be alone. Maria had brought traditional Mexican wedding cookies and champagne for breakfast. Sophia had downloaded a playlist of upbeat music to keep spirits high. Daniel's cousin Carmen had brought makeup and promised to make me camera ready. But as they buzzed around me with excitement and love, I could not shake the hollow feeling in my chest. Today I would marry the love of my life, and my parents would not be there to see it. "Okay," Maria said, kneeling in front of me as I sat in a hotel robe staring blankly at my wedding dress. "We are going to talk about this." "There is nothing to talk about," I replied automatically. "Mija, your parents are making a terrible mistake. But their mistake does not have to ruin your day. You have family here. You have people who love you and support you and could not be more excited to see you marry my son. Let us be enough for today." Tears pricked my eyes. "You have all been more than enough. I just never imagined getting married without my parents there." "I know. And that hurts, and it is okay to feel that hurt. But do not let it steal your joy. Daniel is downstairs right now, probably pacing a hole in the carpet, desperate to see you. Your friends are at the venue decorating and laughing and taking way too many photos. 100 people are coming today because they love you both and want to celebrate with you. Your parents' absence is tragic, but it does not make today less meaningful." Sophia handed me a tissue and squeezed my shoulder. "Plus, your makeup is going to run if you keep crying, and Carmen will kill us all." I laughed despite everything, and the heaviness lifted slightly. Getting ready became its own ceremony. Maria helped me into the wedding dress, a simple but elegant gown with lace sleeves and a flowing skirt. Sophia arranged my hair while Carmen worked on my makeup. Daniel's grandmother arrived with the family mantilla, carefully placing it over my hair and whispering a blessing in Spanish. When I finally looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Not because of the makeup or dress, but because I looked happy. Genuinely, deeply happy, despite everything. Daniel is going to lose his mind when he sees you, Sophia said, snapping a photo. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother, at the venue. Saved you a parking spot. Cannot wait to see you. Another text, this one from a number I did not recognize. This is your Uncle George from your mother's side. Your cousin showed me wedding details on Facebook. I would not miss this for the world. See you soon. Then another, Rachel, it is Aunt Linda, your father's sister. Your cousin told me about today. We are coming. Family is family. My phone continued buzzing with messages from extended family members I had not spoken to in years, all saying T. Hey, we're on their way. What is happening? I asked, showing Maria the messages. She smiled knowingly. Family has a way of showing up when it matters, Mija. Even when they are not supposed to know. The venue was a restored barn in Sonoma wine country, chosen because it reminded Daniel of the natural settings he loved while being elegant enough for a wedding. As our car pulled up, I could see guests beginning to arrive. And then I saw them. My extended family. Aunts, uncles, and cousins I had not seen since childhood, all dressed for a wedding. Uncle George, my mother's brother who I had not spoken to since college. Aunt Linda, my father's sister who lived in Boston. Cousins I barely remembered, now adults with their own children. Kevin stood at the entrance, grinning widely. Surprise. I may have made some phone calls. How did you? I posted the venue and time on the Chin family Facebook group. Told everyone you would love to see them. Apparently, not everyone agrees with Mom and Dad's decision to skip their oldest daughter's wedding. Uncle George approached, pulling me into a hug. Your parents always were stubborn. But you're still our family, Rachel. We would not miss this. Aunt Linda was next, her eyes misty. Your father called to tell us not to come. Said this was a mistake we should not encourage. I told him he was the one making the mistake. You look beautiful, sweetheart. I was overwhelmed, tears threatening again. These family members who owed me nothing, who could have stayed out of family drama, had driven hours to be here because it was right. Inside the barn, Daniel's family had created magic. White flowers hung from exposed beams. String lights twinkled across the ceiling. Rows of chairs faced an altar decorated with greenery and candles. Mariachi music played softly in the background, a nod to Daniel's heritage that his family had insisted on. I peeked through the doorway and saw Daniel at the altar with his best man, looking nervous and excited. The sight of him, waiting for me, grounded everything. This was why we were here. Not for my parents' approval or anyone else's. For us, for the life we were choosing together. Maria appeared at my elbow. Ready? Almost. I just need a minute. I stepped outside for air, and that is when I saw it. My parents' silver Mercedes pulling into the parking lot. I watched frozen as my parents parked and got out of the car. My mother wore a formal dress, not the traditional cheapao I had dreamed she might wear. My father was in a dark suit, his expression unreadable from a distance. They walked toward the barn slowly, and I could see them taking in the scene. My extended family laughing together. Daniel's relatives greeting guests warmly. The beautiful setup that celebrated both of our cultures. Kevin saw them too and moved to intercept. I could not hear the conversation, but I saw my brother's body language, protective, questioning. After a moment, he turned and pointed to where I stood. My parents approached. The distance between us felt both infinite and non-existent. Rachel, my mother began, then stopped, seeming at a loss for words. I found my voice, steady despite my hammering heart. Why are you here? My father cleared his throat. We were driving past your grandmother's house this morning. Stopped in to check on her. She asked if we were going to our daughter's wedding. What did you tell her? I asked. We told her no, my mother admitted. That we did not approve. She asked us if we were idiots. Despite everything, a small laugh escaped me. My grandmother, now 88 and living alone by choice, had always been formidable. She told us that she came to America with nothing, raised 4 children in a 1-bedroom apartment, and worked as a seamstress for 40 years to give us opportunities, my father continued. She said the whole point of sacrifice is so your children can choose happiness instead of just survival. She said we had forgotten what actually matters. My mother's voice was tight when she spoke. Then she called Richard's sister Linda, who apparently told her half the family was coming here against our wishes. She said if we were too proud to celebrate our daughter's wedding, we should not call ourselves her children anymore. Threatened to write us out of her will, my father added with the ghost of a smile. Your grandmother does not make idle threats. I stood there, trying to process this. They came because they were shamed into it by an 88-year-old woman and threatened with social consequences. Not because they had a change of heart about Daniel or our marriage. So, you are here because Grandma bullied you, I stated flatly. We are here, my mother said, meeting my eyes for the first time, because we were wrong. The words hung in the air between us. Your grandmother said something else, my father continued. She said she left everything behind in Taiwan, her family, her home, everything she knew, to give us a chance at a better life. And what we do with that chance matters. She did not sacrifice so we could become the same rigid parents she escaped. She did it so we could learn to value love and family and happiness, not just achievement. She also called us arrogant, controlling, and short-sighted, my mother added with a wry expression. In Taiwanese. Very colorfully. Your Uncle George called too, my father said. Told us he has been watching you grow up, and he has never seen you as happy as when you talk about Daniel. Said Daniel looks at you like you hung the moon. Asked us when we stopped caring about your actual happiness instead of just your resume. My mother took a hesitant step forward. Rachel, I do not fully understand your choice. I still worry about practical things like finances and career trajectories. But watching you walk away from us these past months, seeing how little you need us anymore, I am starting to understand that my worries are not your problems to fix. You are building your own life, and maybe that life looks different than what we imagined. That does not make it wrong. We should have been excited for you, my father said, his voice rough with emotion. When you told us you were engaged, we should have asked about the proposal, celebrated with you, welcomed Daniel into our family. Instead, we made it about our expectations and our disappointments. We failed you. I felt tears sliding down my cheeks. You did fail me. You made me feel like I had to choose between my happiness and your love. We know, my mother whispered. And we are so sorry. Music drifted from inside the barn. The ceremony would start soon. I do not know if I can forgive you right now, I said honestly. This hurt too much. You made me doubt myself, doubt Daniel, doubt everything about this day. You are willing to miss my wedding because you think I am settling. We were wrong, my mother said firmly. We were letting pride and rigid expectations blind us to what actually matters. You have always been an extraordinary daughter, Rachel. Not because of your grades or your career, but because of your heart, your strength, your kindness. If Daniel sees those things in you and you see equally wonderful things in him, that is not settling. That is luck. My father pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. We brought this. Your grandmother's jade bracelet. It was supposed to be given to you on your wedding day. We almost left it at home because we were not planning to come. But we are here now and I would like to give it to you if you will accept it. I took the envelope with shaking hands, opening it to reveal a delicate jade bracelet I remembered from childhood. My grandmother wore it every day until arthritis made it too painful. It is a symbol of family, continuity, and blessing, my mother explained. She wore it when she married your grandfather. I wore it when I married your father. It should be yours today. Kevin appeared in the doorway. Rachel? 5 minutes. You okay? I looked at my brother, then at my parents standing awkwardly, hopefully, in their formal clothes. They were here. It was not perfect. It did not erase months of hurt and rejection. But they were here. I do not know if I am ready to have you walk me down the aisle, I said to my father. Uncle George already offered. I think I need to give that role to someone who has been here from the beginning. Pain flashed across my father's face, but he nodded. I understand. We have not earned that. But I continued, fastening the jade bracelet around my wrist. You can sit in the front row. You can witness this. You can start to understand why I love him. And after today, we can talk about what comes next. Relief and gratitude flooded both their faces. My mother reached out hesitantly, then pulled me into a tight hug. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for being more gracious than we deserve. The ceremony was everything I had hoped for and more. Uncle George walked me down the aisle, his arm steady, his pride evident. As we processed past rows of guests, I saw my extended family on one side, Daniel's on the other, and in the front row, my parents sitting next to each other, crying. Daniel's expression when he saw me made every difficult moment worth it. His eyes filled with tears, and he reached for my hands before I even reached the altar, unable to wait. The officiant, one of Daniel's environmental science professors, spoke about partnership, growth, and choosing each other every day. We exchanged vows we had written ourselves, promising to build a life based on mutual respect, shared values, and unconditional support. When Daniel said, "I promise to love the parts of you that your parents see and the parts only I get to see, to celebrate your successes and support you through challenges, to build a family with you that honors both of our backgrounds while creating something entirely our own," I saw my mother wipe away tears. When I said, "I promise to be your partner in every sense, to value your dreams as highly as my own, to create a home filled with laughter and purpose and love, to prove that a good life is not measured by salary or status, but by the depth of our connection and the impact we have on the world," my father bowed his head. We exchanged rings. The officiant pronounced us married. Daniel kissed me to enthusiastic applause from everyone except his grandmother, who yelled, "Mas! Mas!" demanding a longer kiss. At the reception, Maria gave a toast that had everyone laughing and crying. When Daniel first told me about Rachel, he said he met someone who challenged him to be better while accepting exactly who he is. That is rare. That is special. Rachel, you have given my son something money cannot buy, true partnership. And in return, he will spend every day trying to be worthy of that gift. Welcome to our family, Mija. We could not love you more if we tried. Later in the evening, my father approached me as I stood at the edge of the dance floor, watching Daniel dance with his mother. "May I have a word?" We stepped outside onto a terrace overlooking vineyards. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "I spent the last 3 hours watching you," my father began. "Watching how Daniel looks at you, how his family has welcomed you, how you light up around them. Uncle George told me something during cocktail hour. He said you visit his family more than we do. That you call to check on people, remember birthdays, show up for events. He said you have always been the heart of the family, but we were too focused on your achievements to notice." "Dad, let me finish," he interrupted gently. "I have spent my entire life measuring success in tangible terms. Income, titles, status. It is how I was raised, what I was taught mattered. But watching you today, seeing your happiness, I realize I have been measuring the wrong things. Success is not what you earn. It is not what you accomplish. Success is building a life that brings you joy and allows you to share that joy with others. You have done that, Rachel. You have built something beautiful, and I have been too blind to see it. I am still angry with you," I said honestly. "Both of you. For making me feel like I had to choose, for not supporting me, for missing so much of this process. We deserve your anger. We have made terrible mistakes. But if you are willing, we would like to try to do better. To get to know Daniel, to understand this life you are building, to be the parents you deserve instead of the parents we have been." Maria's earlier words echoed in my mind. Whether your parents see your worth does not change your worth. But having them finally see it, finally try to understand, felt like its own gift. "It will take time," I told him. "Trust is not rebuilt overnight." "We have time," he replied. "And we want to use it better than we have." The wedding was everything I hoped for, made sweeter by the unexpected reunion with extended family and my parents' last-minute appearance. But the real work began afterward, in the months that followed, as we all tried to rebuild what had been damaged. Daniel and I returned from our honeymoon to find a package on our doorstep. Inside was a handwritten letter from my mother and a collection of old photographs. The letter read, "Rachel, I have spent the past 2 weeks looking through these photos and remembering who you have always been. The little girl who cried when we had to return a lost dog to its owner. The teenager who volunteered at a homeless shelter every Saturday. The young woman who called me after long days just to check in, even when I was too busy to really listen. You have always had a heart bigger than your accomplishments, and I am ashamed I could not see that as the greatest achievement of all. I would like to start over, if you will let me. Not as the mother who tried to control your path, but as someone who learns from watching you walk your own path with grace and courage. Love, Mom. The photos showed me at various ages, holding Kevin as a newborn, helping my grandmother bake mooncakes, standing between my parents at their citizenship ceremony. Evidence of family bonds I had almost given up on. Over the following months, we established new patterns. My parents invited Daniel and me to dinner every other Sunday, where they asked him about his work, listened to his passion for environmental conservation, and even donated to his organization. My mother started learning basic Spanish phrases to communicate with Daniel's grandmother. My father attended one of Daniel's presentations on watershed protection and told him afterward, I did not understand all of it, but I could see how much you care. That matters. It was not perfect. Old habits die hard, and there were still moments when my mother would make comments about career advancement or my father would bring up former classmates who made partner at law firms. But now, Daniel and I would exchange glances and gently redirect the conversation, and my parents, to their credit, would catch themselves and adjust. The real breakthrough came 6 months after the wedding. Daniel organized a joint family dinner at his parents' restaurant. Both sets of parents in the same room, forced to interact beyond polite small talk at the wedding. I watched nervously as Maria showed my mother her kitchen, explaining the family recipes that had been passed down for generations. My father and Roberto discovered a shared love of baseball and spent 20 minutes debating the Giants' prospects. Kevin and Daniel's brother hit it off immediately, making plans to attend a concert together. At one point, I overheard my mother ask Maria, "How did you know Rachel was right for Daniel?" Maria smiled warmly. I knew because he became more himself around her, not less. She did not try to change him or mold him into something else. She celebrated who he was and challenged him to grow in the directions he wanted to grow. That is what love should do. My mother nodded slowly, processing this. I spent so much time worrying that Rachel was changing, becoming someone different from the daughter I raised. I could not see that she was just finally becoming herself. And she is wonderful, Maria replied simply. Exactly as she is. Later that evening, as we prepared to leave, my father pulled Daniel aside. I watched from across the room as they talked, my father's body language gradually relaxing, Daniel's natural warmth breaking through the initial awkwardness. What did my dad say to you? I asked Daniel later in the car. He smiled. He apologized. Said he judged me without knowing me, made assumptions based on career and income instead of character. Then he asked if we could have lunch sometime, just the two of us. He wants to understand my work better. Really? Really. And Rachel, I think I am going to say yes. Not because I need his approval, but because I think he genuinely wants to try. A year after our wedding, we hosted a celebration dinner at our small apartment. The space was modest by my parents' standards, a 2-bedroom in Oakland with mismatched furniture and environmental posters on the walls. But it was ours, filled with things we had chosen together. Both sets of parents came, along with Kevin, Daniel's siblings, and a handful of close friends. The kitchen was too small to accommodate everyone, so we set up a buffet and ate picnic-style in our living room. My mother arrived with a homemade dish, her first attempt at making one of Maria's recipes. It was not quite right, too much soy sauce and not enough cilantro, but Maria ate it enthusiastically and offered to teach her the proper technique. My father brought a bottle of wine and a wrapped package. "This is for both of you," he said, handing it to Daniel. Inside were 2 framed photographs. One showed me as a little girl in my grandfather's garage, grease on my face, holding a wrench almost as big as I was. The other showed Daniel as a child, standing in a stream with a net, his expression focused and joyful. "I found the one of Rachel while going through old photos," my father explained. "Your mother sent me Daniel's after I asked if she had any childhood pictures. I thought together they told a story about who you both have always been. People who love what they love passionately, without apology. These are perfect," Daniel said, genuinely moved. "Thank you." Over dinner, conversation flowed easily between languages and generations. Kevin taught Daniel's sister a card game. The mothers compared recipes. The fathers discussed a documentary about climate change they had both watched. At one point, my mother leaned over and whispered to me, "Your grandmother would have loved this." She had passed away 3 months after our wedding, peacefully in her sleep. But not before making my mother promise to stop being stubborn and love your daughter the way she deserves. She would have, I agreed. She always said family is who you choose to show up for. I am showing up now, my mother said softly. I know it does not erase the past, but I am here. And I will keep being here. Later, as everyone gathered for dessert, Daniel stood and raised his glass. I want to propose a toast. To family. Not just the family we are born into or the family we marry into, but the family we create through choice, effort, and love. Thank you all for being here, for supporting Rachel and me, for showing us what it means to build bridges instead of walls. And to Rachel, Kevin added, standing with his own glass. For being brave enough to choose happiness even when it was not easy. For teaching all of us that love is not about meeting expectations. It is about being seen, valued, and celebrated for exactly who you are. Everyone raised their glasses, and I looked around at the faces of people I loved, people who had shown up in different ways and at different times, but who were all here now. My parents were not perfect. The hurt they caused did not disappear overnight. But they were trying, genuinely trying, to understand the life I had chosen and the man I had chosen to build it with. And that effort, that willingness to grow and change, was its own kind of love. 2 years after that first disastrous announcement of my engagement, I found myself in a very different place than I ever imagined. Daniel and I had built a life that reflected both of our values. We lived simply but meaningfully, both pursuing work that mattered to us rather than chasing promotions and raises. My relationship with my parents had transformed from one of conditional approval to something more honest and mutual. We did not always agree, but we had learned to disagree with respect. They had learned to ask questions instead of making pronouncements. I had learned to share my life with them without needing their validation. The biggest surprise was watching my parents' own perspectives evolve. My father started volunteering with Daniel's environmental organization, bringing his financial expertise to help with grant applications and budget management. My mother began teaching ESL classes at a community center, connecting with immigrant families the way Maria's family had connected with me. One evening, my mother called me to share something she had realized. I spent your entire childhood measuring you against an imaginary standard of success. Perfect grades, perfect college, perfect career. I thought that is what it meant to be a good parent, to push you toward excellence. But watching you now, seeing how you live your life with purpose and joy, I realize I had it backward. Excellence is not about achievements. It is about integrity, kindness, and living according to your values. You have always had that, Rachel. I just could not see it through my own anxiety and ambition. Kevin got engaged around that time to a woman who taught kindergarten and made him laugh until he cried. When he brought her to meet our parents, I watched anxiously for signs of the judgment and disapproval I had experienced. Instead, my mother hugged her immediately and said, "Welcome to the family. Tell us about yourself, not your resume. Progress, imperfect but real." The truth I have learned through all of this is that family relationships are complicated, messy, and constantly evolving. People can hurt us deeply and still love us. They can fail us in crucial moments and still show up later. The question is not whether they were perfect, but whether they are willing to grow. My parents were not at my side when I needed them most. That absence caused real pain that does not simply disappear. But their eventual arrival, their willingness to admit they were wrong and work to do better, allowed us to write a different ending than the one that seemed inevitable that awful day when I read their rejection text. I do not share this story to say everyone should forgive family members who hurt them. Reconciliation is a personal choice that depends on many factors, including whether the other person is genuinely willing to change. I share it because I want people to know that relationships can evolve, that people can grow, and that sometimes the ending you fear is not the ending you get. If you are facing family rejection over your choices, whether about marriage, career, identity, or anything else, Please know that your worth is not determined by their approval. Build your life according to your values, surround yourself with people who see and celebrate you, and remain open to the possibility of healing, but do not wait for it to be happy. Daniel and I recently found out we are expecting our first child. When I told my parents, my mother cried and my father asked if we had thought about names. They did not offer unsolicited advice about parenting styles or lecture about education planning. They just expressed joy and asked how they could support us. That night, lying in bed with Daniel's hand on my growing belly, I felt overwhelmingly grateful. Not just for the baby we were expecting, but for the journey that brought us here. For the courage to choose love over approval. For a partner who stood beside me through the hardest moments. For a family, both biological and chosen, that learned how to love better. My parents may not have walked me down the aisle that day, but in the years since, they have walked beside me in ways that matter more. They showed up. They changed. They chose growth over pride. And while the past cannot be rewritten, the future remains unwritten, full of possibility for all of us. Have you ever had to choose between family approval and your own happiness? How did you navigate that decision? Share your experiences in the comments below, and do not forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Remember, you do not need anyone's permission to build the life you want. The people who truly love you will find their way to supporting you, even if it takes them longer than you hoped. Your worth is not measured by who shows up on day one, but by who you become while living authentically, with or without their approval. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there who is struggling with similar challenges know that they are not alone and that happy endings come in many different forms.